The Constitutional Convention, or the Philadelphia Convention of 1787, was an extraordinary event in American history. 55 delegates attended this meeting from various different states, looking for a way to amend the broken Articles of Confederation. You had as many as two delegates coming from a state like New Hampshire, to up to 8 delegates coming from a state like Pennsylvania. The delegates ranged in age from only 26 years old all the way to age 81. And by May 25th of 1787, enough people had arrived in Philadelphia to begin. One of the first acts of the delegates at the Constitutional Convention of 1787 was to elect George Washington as president of the convention, and to adopt what are now some of the most famous rules of order and proceeding that existed at that time in order to give context to how the debate would move forward. This included the fact that at least 7 states had to be present, delegates from 7 states had to be present in order for the convention to do business on any given day. If a delegate's absence would leave a state without representation, they had to get permission to not be present. When rising to speak, delegates had to address the president. Members, while one member was speaking, could not pass notes or hold conversations with one another or read from books, pamphlets, or papers. And a member wasn't allowed to speak on an issue more than once. They could not speak a second time on a particular issue until everybody else had had a chance or first opportunity to speak themselves. Committees were allowed to be appointed as was necessary, and any decision made by the members of the convention was subject to change. No decision could be final until the entire plan was completed. Each state received 1 vote, no matter how many delegates they had. And critically, for historical purposes, the convention's proceedings were to be secret. No delegate was to ever disclose the substance of the debates. They were actually allowed to take notes. But you can think about how incredible that is to look at in 2020 as we celebrate Constitution Day, to know that the convention at that time was secret. It was these rules that allowed the delegates to consider incredibly pressing questions, the pressing questions of the time, including critically the balance between state and federal power, particularly the issues that arose between larger states that had more power like Virginia or New York, and smaller states like Delaware and Rhode Island, and how there would be some sort of equal representation from the state's perspective, as well as the balance of federal power between different branches, and what we see today as the executive power, the legislative power, and the judicial power. By September 17th of 1787, 38 of 41 delegates would vote for what we now know as the Constitution. But this was not binding until ratification, which was its own incredible and unique process that happened over the next year.